Okay, I'm going live again, even though I don't really want to go live. This is just much easier than me recording multiple videos. I just want to start the week off because I've been processing the uptick in people who are critiquing critical race theory in schools, and I feel like education's like my number one thing, and I'm just really frustrated because I think it's well established that like it's very important to know your history, to know how to not repeat that history on every level. So I don't even understand what the basis is for saying that critical race theory would be detrimental to the education of Americans, because the lack of critical race theory is why we're in this mess currently, pretending that hundreds of years of slavery didn't happen on systemic levels, and that hundreds of years of discrimination for all ethnic minority groups didn't happen, and that hundreds of years of internment camps haven't already happened. And then, oh, look at that. ICE is putting people in cages. Well, we've done that before. But we've got a bunch of ICE agents who never heard that we've done that before. So they're okay participating in that. And this is not even about white people or black people. This is about all people in the United States having different levels of consciousness because they have different levels of awareness of history. And that's all critical race theory is. And it's really sad when I hear people of color specifically. And there's a large trend of this going around, and I don't really know what to name it or how to pin it, and maybe that's not important to label it, but there's a subset of people of color and people from just like oppressed minority groups who feel like pointing like that critical race theory or critical thinking in general is actually an agenda from the liberal left to make us hyper focus on our difference. And that's just such a lazy way of framing it. It's super lazy, because difference is not bad. Like, I'm a black woman, and if you don't acknowledge me as such, honestly, I don't really want you in my life. But the problem and the lack of awareness comes when you say difference equals different levels of treatment. There's a hierarchy of difference. So that's something that you become aware of when you engage in critical thinking and critical theory of all types of critical theory. And it's almost like a fear of knowledge. And I really notice it among like evangelicals, like hyper religious people who clearly operate from a fear-based narrative. And I'm not saying that like religion is bad, because I think religion is a thing that helps you maintain spiritual practices that are important for inner awareness and inner consciousness of your soul. But a lot of times in this, most religions have been morphed by the patriarchy at this point. And so most of them are fear-based. And so I see this narrative, and I'm not saying it only comes from religious people, but I just think about like Chip and Joanna Gaines. Like, I saw that they like donated to something to stop critical race theory from happening. And I'm just like, yeah, like they're like evangelicals who are like, let's just like spiritually bypass like all oppression because like God will like fix it. And it's like, no, God made you so that you could fix it. Like, and so it's just really sad, I think, that a lot of people of color have fallen for this idea that like being woke is an agenda from the left, whatever that means. I don't even know. Just like them being like critical race theory is racist because you're highlighting differences. It's like, we need to highlight that difference has been used to oppress people. That's all it is. And anyone pretending that it's anything else is coming from a fear-based narrative. And I don't operate from fear. And I hope that everyone realizes at this point that that doesn't really get us anywhere. It just lets people with power continue to manipulate how you perceive situations. So then if you apply critical race theory to the lens to your life, then you're able to see when these things are occurring, and you can be proactive about it. We don't have to wait until more police officers kill people. We don't have to wait until more legislation is passed to, covertly oppress people. We can just know that's what's happening. It's very lazy to say that talking about race perpetuates racism. It's very lazy. And I know people love to point out, Morgan Freeman said it, and all these other black people say it, and Kanye West, and those black people, they have internalized racism, and I don't know how else to put it. And the reason why I say that is because they're afraid to acknowledge that their blackness is something that they are defined by, because it's not their choice. And that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate that people see a black person and then they make judgments about them, and that wasn't their choice. It's not like when you dress up in a really cute outfit and you want someone to be like, well, I love your outfit. I'm really gonna make a judgment about you based off of the outfit that you have on, which it would be, arguably what you desired when you put the outfit on, right? But with blackness or with other very identifiable phenotypes, or even characteristics that obviously qualify, they're socially constructed. Yes, they're completely socially constructed. I'm not saying they're not, but when you have something about you that is undebatably black, or undebatably Latina, or undebatably, points out that you have a different ability about you, that wasn't your choice, and you're not asking to be judged by that. But it's still happening, okay? It's still happening. And if we can get to a place where people can see that judgment and and use their social scripts in a way that doesn't say, I'm now going to treat this person as they're lesser than me, then we're good. But being unconscious of the difference doesn't mean that they're not going to subconsciously treat you differently. Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense. It's don't talk about race because that perpetuates racism. So let's all just be colorblind, and I hope that this person will treat me like they're just basing me off of the creative expression of myself that I'm presenting right now. Well, consciously, they're probably thinking that's what they're doing, but subconsciously they're not, because they're being informed by years of history. And that's why we need critical race theory, because I could come up to someone and I could start using my schemas and my social scripts that I use to help me navigate the world every day. And I could start to say, create a whole narrative about them. And it's completely subconscious. I'm not consciously doing it. It takes reflection after the fact, or even mindfulness in the moment, to realize that's why I'm doing it. And if we can equip the youth of future generations with that very useful tool, my God, we will transcend all racism. We will live in a post-racial society. We can have a utopia, but it's going to take hard work and a lot of reckoning and facing the freaking truth to get there. And if you really think we could just get there by spiritually bypassing and praying away all oppression, and let's just forgive everyone and let bygones be bygones. No. Stop it, you. Stop it. Sorry, the cat is trying to play with me. No. I'm walking around with the transgressions and the achievements of all my ancestors in my DNA, and so are you. And that's why it's important, even on a personal level, to ask your family members, hey, tell me about your life growing up. What were grandma and grandpa like? What were great grandma and grandpa like? What's our family been through? Because you're carrying that in your DNA. I was watching something that Sadhguru was saying he was being interviewed by someone, and I can't remember who it was, but in the interview, he was talking about how, your nose, right? Your nose on your face right now might be the nose that was on your like great 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 grandmother's face, and you are carrying around your great great grandmother's nose, right? And that's like a really small like example with like your phenotype and your physical appearance. But like, let's just say your great great grandmother like experienced like some trauma. Like that stuff is transgenerational. And so anyone who's objectifying against critical race theory is basically saying, I don't want to know about trauma. It's very uncomfortable for me, and I'd rather just live in continue to live in my bubble. And so don't throw that Morgan Freeman quote at me. Don't tell me about forgiveness and Nelson Mandela and all this stuff, because Nelson Mandela does talk about forgiveness, but he also talks about like recognizing things and like reconciling and like having like peace after like strife. Like, so I don't understand how you think you're gonna get to reconciliation if you acknowledge that there was something to reconcile. Like, that's why we need critical race theory and critical thinking and all critical theories, queer theory, everything theory that you could possibly think of. We need to take time, we need to turn it over, we need to get comfortable with it, and that's going to be uncomfortable. And yeah, I'm just super like, it's just like so and I grew up in a religious background. And I'm still a very spiritual person. I'm no longer religious, but I'm still a very spiritual person. And it's just so, I can clock it so fast when it's just like a whole bunch of like spiritual speech to like bypass reality. It's like, let's just pray like the world's gonna be better. God will fix it. Like, God really made you so that you would fix it. Like, this is heaven. There is no pie in the sky place where you're gonna go to escape all of your problems after you've ignored all the problems. It's like, you could live on heaven right now if you do the work. It's just really lazy thinking. It's lazy. It's spiritual bypassing. It's straight up delusional. It's straight up delusional, and it's completely rooted in fear. And I would just love for anyone to explain to me any other perspective. Like, just people like used to like, I don't even know like what this group of people is that are like, I don't believe in any narratives that the media tells me, and the media says racism is happening, therefore I do not believe racism is happening, because you're just a sheep if you believe that whatever the media says is happening is happening. Yeah, there's still like everyone in the media, like, yeah, there are some like real like manipulative people who are trying to like, you know, like give you some messaging, but like also like just regular people that you know work in the media, and like they are just like doing their due diligence of like covering like the news. Like, they're just doing their job, and it's up to you to have discernment about what news is real and what news isn't real. So you can't just throw the baby out with the bathwater. And that's the problem. Everyone just wants to be like, oh, that one part of that one thing didn't make sense. That one part of that one thing was corrupt. Let's throw it all out. Instead of being like, oh, is there like a big systemic like lie happening? No, like racism is not a big systemic lie. Like, it's literally been happening. The lie is that systemic racism hasn't been happening. Yeah. So all the critique of the media right now should actually be applied to the past several decades of the media, where they were pretending that systemic racism wasn't the root of all of these issues. We go back, we should take your skills, whatever skills you're using to hyper focus on the truths that are being exposed right now. You should take that same energy, because this is what you're actually missing. You should take that same energy, put it on the news that was happening in the 80s and the 90s, and that's where the lie was happening. And if you do that, you know what you're doing? You're doing critical race theory. So all you people who are critiquing critical race theory are actually doing critical theory. Yeah, you're just doing like, I don't even know how to, there's not a phrase for it. Maybe there is, and I just don't know. But it's just lazy, and it's misdirected. And I completely understand that it's uncomfortable to be a person who's been oppressed and be like, hey, I've been oppressed and it wasn't my choice, and I really hate that. And I want to like live a better life where I'm not defined by my oppression. I completely get that. You can transcend your oppression. Like, I'm a fabulous human being. Like, yeah, people have tried to break me down because I'm a black woman, and people make quick judgments about me because I'm a black woman. And I'm literally like, hey, why are you judging me like that? I'm just me. But it's unfortunately, like, that's the double consciousness that W.E.B. Du Bois was talking about. It's a peculiar sensation when you are judging yourself, then you realize a whole other judgment is happening of you that you didn't consent to. But that doesn't mean it's not happening. It's still happening. Don't be lazy about it and try to shift the narrative and shift the focus. And like all that energy, like I really wish like black people and other like minorities, and I'm speaking on black people because that's my like ethnic group that I decide that I am aligned with. And I know the history of them, and I understand that I am a child of immigrants, and therefore, sorry. Okay, I got disconnected. It's all good. Mercury retrograde. I was just gonna finish up by saying, I know that I'm a child of immigrants, therefore my black experience is colored in a different way than black Americans who directly grew up in a family that the black experience in America was the sole, experience. My parents had a black experience that wasn't colored by American politics or American racism long before they came to the United States. But the point I was trying to make is you're still black. It doesn't matter where you came from. And people are going to look at you and they're going to judge you as such. They're not going to sit down and be like, oh, where are your parents from? Oh, are you from Africa? Oh, you're really an African. Like, they don't understand that nuance. They're clocking you as a black person, and then they're going to use those preconceived notions to make judgments about you. And wouldn't you just love it if they had, if you could at least say, well, at least people have the education now to catch themselves when they're making biased judgments about my blackness. You can't deny it. You are black. You can't deny it. You can hope that people can be better. You can hope that they won't be racist. But I have experienced overt racism. And I've been like, dang, I didn't think that was going to happen. But I'm not going to pretend that that was just like a one-off situation. No, it's a systemic issue. And like, we need to be like, there's been such a miseducation in this country that needs to be re-educated. That's it. Like, you can't even make any argument you make of saying like talking about race perpetuates racism is completely fear-based and unfounded. And I would love for someone to try to explain to me how it isn't. It is fear-based, spiritual bypassing, unfounded, completely, just unhelpful. I wish, this was the point I was trying to make. I wish black people who are saying that critical race theory hyper focuses on difference and is an agenda from the left to make you feel like a victim. I wish you could take that same energy you're using to critique critical race theory to critique white supremacy, because we would get so much farther. Then you're like, you want to stay comfortable. You don't want to confront reality. It's too uncomfortable. It shines a light on everything that you're probably insecure about. Stop being insecure about it. It's like the same thing I say when people are like, astrology is bad, or like, doing any sort of like spiritual teaching that isn't evangelical Christianity or like one of the other big three religions is bad because I did it and then I had a weird experience with it. Well, it's like you had a weird experience with it because you have some insecurity that you're attached to, and it's coming out and channeled through whatever you're doing. You could be literally like painting a picture, and then you would paint a dark picture, and then you could be like, oh, painting's bad because I painted once and there was a dark experience I had while I was painting. It's like, that's in you. Spend some time figuring why that's in you. And then once you do that, you don't have to have fear around painting. Then you could probably paint another dark picture and be like, that's fine. That's in me. I've reconciled with that. Or you could get it out. You could process it. And then you can paint pictures that aren't so dark anymore and be like, hey man, I dealt with that. I didn't just stop painting because painting exposed some scary insecurity within me. Like, it's just like, Y'all are so scared to see yourselves. Do the shadow work. Pluto's returning. The United States is getting it. Karma's got a what's that video where the girl says karma's got a kiss for me? Like, that's it. United States, karma's got a kiss for you. And I don't even mean it in the sense of like all the bad things you've done are coming back to bite you in the ass now. I literally just mean everything that has an input has an output, and energy is the everlasting source of life. And so when you've been putting out energy of denial, yeah, everything you've been denying is going to come back eventually and be like, hey, please stop denying. So that's where we're at right now. We're in a space where we have a choice to make. Are we going to continue to deny, or are we going to reconcile? That's the choice we have to make. And the decision is not made for you based off of your identity. It's not made for you based off of your blackness or your whiteness or your queerness or your straightness or your able-bodiedness. It's not made off of any of your identity. It's made off of, are you at a place where you're willing to open up your heart and become aware of who you are and the role that you play in this 3D reality that we're living in? You can't just spiritually bypass everything. There's reality to deal with. You have to face Saturn. Hey, you have to face Saturn. We live in a real world. We live in a real world. We don't live in a fantasy world. I know you wish we did, but we live in the real world. So that's all I have to say about critical race theory. The whole thing is very, it's very upsetting to see people deny that this is medicine that we need right now. It's very upsetting. But that's all I had to say, and I hope everyone has a good week. I've just seen the uptick in the critical race theory, debate, and it's just one thing when you've learned it. I grew up. I mean, not that I grew up, but I went to college and I studied critical race theory in my sociology courses, my gender, sexuality, women's studies courses, and my psychology courses to some extent, psychology of the Black woman specifically. So I understand that this is a necessary tool, and that usually once you engage with it and you get over the discomfort, you just come out the other side with clarity and peace in your soul and an ability to love on your fellow human in a way that transcends any difference. You can see your fellow human's difference and be like, that is beautiful and I love you for that. Instead of having fear around acknowledging difference. I don't want you in my life if you don't acknowledge how I'm different from you. We're not a monolith as a human race. Yes, these things that make us different are socially constructed, but they're there. They exist. We can see them with our eyes. If we have sight, if we're blessed enough to have sight, we can sense them with our other sensory abilities. So there's no point in ignoring them. That's silly. Let's just love them. And we can only love them first when we acknowledge them. So have a great Monday, everyone. Bye-bye. How do I end this? I don't know how to end it. Oh, there it is.